Investigators in REPLICA still trying to piece together the events leading up to the murder of a teacher.
Rachael DelTondo was found bleeding Sunday night. Her driveway turned into a death scene.
There were so many people that had a motive to harm this woman. The jilted ex-husband, allegedly this young man, the individual that released that confidential police report about her. We just don't know.
Was she killed because she was a cooperating witness?
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. So suddenly the state of Pennsylvania is investigating REPLICA PD. Somebody's in trouble for something.
It wasn't like a dick pic or nothing. It was a girl on a swing. Well, it wasn't even a girl, it was a woman on a swing.
The backstories are the strange part of this whole particular case.
Breaking news this morning on the Rachael DelTondo homicide investigation. A key figure in that case was found unconscious on the side of the road over the weekend.
He was obsessed with her. He told me he's in love with her.
As more details are revealed in this disturbing case, the intrigue just deepens.
A lot of people don't know what they're talking about. They just sort of shut their mouth.
Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel.
Today I want to talk about Rachael DelTondo. Rachael was shot to death in her parents' driveway, and there are many strange things about this case. There are also many suspects in this case, and of course, there are many conspiracy theories in this case. So I want to do what I usually do on my channel, which is I want to give you guys the facts, we'll discuss the theories, and then you can decide for yourself. So the whole thing started on Mother's Day 2018 in a small town in Pennsylvania called REPLICA. It was 10:45 p.m. on a Sunday night when shots rang out at the DelTondo's home, more specifically in their driveway. Neighbors called police reporting multiple gunshots, and shortly after the police arrived, they found Rachael in the driveway bleeding to death. They actually pronounced her dead at the scene. Rachael lived with her parents. This was her parents' home. According to Rachael's mom, when she saw Rachael's face at the funeral, like in the casket, she said that Rachael had an angry look on her face. Immediately in this small town, everyone was talking. They were like, is this a crime of passion? Did Rachael know the killer? Or was this like a calculated hit? So investigators began retracing Rachael's steps. The night that Rachael was shot, she was hanging out with some people. One of those people is Lauren Watkins, who was 17 at the time. Keep in mind that Rachael is 33 years old. So she's hanging out with Lauren. They were apparently hanging out all day. They were in the car driving, and this is something they would do all the time, according to Lauren, just kind of drive around. While they're driving, remember this is a small town, they drive past another vehicle. In this vehicle is someone called Sheldon Jeter.
We're here at USA Center Stage with finally getting that Whitfield crowd in football for your senior year, Sheldon Jeter. Congratulations, first off.
Now, Sheldon Jeter was in this car with a bunch of other people, and he knows Rachael and he knows Lauren. So they pass each other. Shortly after this happens, Sheldon sends a Facebook message to Lauren, who's in the other car, and he says, quote, "Did I just pass you guys?" Lauren said that she responded and she said, "Yeah." Then he says, "Well, what are you doing?" question mark. And Lauren says she doesn't respond to that message. And they go and pick up a third person. This person is Sheldon's brother, Tyree. Rachael, Lauren, and Tyree, all three of them in Lauren's car, go to an ice cream shop. It's called Hank's. While they're at Hank's ice cream, Tyree gets some messages from his brother Sheldon. Sheldon texts Tyree. He says, "Is y'all there already?" Tyree responds, "Yes." This is at 10:07 p.m. At 10:15 p.m., Sheldon says, "I got left, huh?" with 5 smiley faces. 4 minutes later, at 10:19 p.m., Sheldon says, "Who all you with?" Tyree doesn't respond. The rest of these messages, Tyree's not responding after he said yes, that he's at the ice cream shop. Then at 10:30 p.m., Sheldon sends another message. He says, Hank's closed. This is the last text from Sheldon. 15 minutes later, Lauren, Tyree, and Rachel are in the car again, and Lauren drops Rachel back to her home. This is at 10:45. She says she leaves from there to go to drop Tyree back at his home, and she was supposed to come back again to Rachel. Well, 4 minutes after Lauren drops Rachel at her home, somebody shoots Rachel. You get 911 calls of a bunch of people like in the neighborhood calling, reporting multiple gunshots.
She was driving Tyree Jeter home when her mother contacted her and told her to come home. Police are questioning her version of events that evening.
Nothing was out of the ordinary.
Rachel always insisted that anybody who drops her off waits to see her go in. Was that true? Was that?
It was.
But you never actually saw her go in, is that correct?
Correct.
What did you exactly see?
Just her get to the door and go for the screen. I drove off, went to take Tyree home.
You didn't see anybody walking
No,
out?
whoever did it had to have got there or been there already.
So first of all, let's mention something right quick. The thing about Rachel is she kind of hung out with minors often. Actually, at the time of Rachel's death, she was suspended from her job as a teacher for having inappropriate conduct with a minor. So let me give you a little bit of a backstory. 2 years before Rachel was killed, on February 2016, she was found in a very compromising position. What happened was somebody noticed a vehicle in an abandoned lot at 2 a.m. and they called the police reporting a suspicious vehicle. So when police show up, they see a car and they notice that all the windows are steamed up. So cops knock and window comes down, and who do they see but Rachel in the driver's seat and a minor male in the passenger seat, which the passenger seat is fully reclined. There's a male there, a minor male. Who is he? Sheldon Jeter. Yes, the same Sheldon Jeter that was texting saying, I got left, huh? Where are you at? Who's there? That same guy, except he was a minor at this time, and it was 2 a.m. They're in this steamy car. So police are like, what's going on? And Rachel says, let me read you the quote. Miss DelTondo told the officers that she was with the boy because he was upset and needed someone to talk to. Miss DelTondo said he was one of her former students, although Mr. Hayden said the boy was never enrolled in the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School. Rachel also told the cops, please do not tell my fiance. He would be very upset if he found out. So police, not only do they not tell her fiance, they don't file a report. They don't file any charges. They don't even notify the school that Sheldon goes to or that she teaches at. None of that. As a matter of fact, they did file a police report, but only a year after it happened, which is so weird. Who files a police report a year after the incident occurred? Well, a reporter asked the police chief that, and he said, quote, when you are an extremely busy police department, incidents that occur don't always get documented, Chief Couch said, adding that the incident was considered a non-issue. The officers were able to see that there was nothing going on, he said. They were separated, nothing was happening, nothing was going on. They knew each other, and one of the responding officers was also in that circle of friendship. The kid was actually going to move in with one of the officers because he has a troubled mother. Chief Couch declined to say whether the teenager was planning to move in with Sergeant Watkins or Officer Conkle. Did you hear that? It said Sergeant Watkins and Officer Conkle. Does the name Watkins seem familiar? Because remember Lauren? Did I ever tell you what her last name was? Lauren Watkins. Yes, the 17-year-old that was hanging out with 33-year-old Rachel. She was the daughter of Sergeant Watkins. The same sergeant who walked up on the steamy car and didn't do anything about it. So back to why they wrote the report a year later. It says, quote, about a year later, Officer Conkle, not Watkins, did write a report about the incident. Chief Couch said the officers decided to write the report after, quote, someone caught wind of the incident and circulated it. So my assistant says, okay, put it down on paper so they know what happened. They wrote this report because someone asked about it, and then somehow after they gave this report to that someone, it was leaked. As a result of this leak, Rachael was suspended from her job. That's why she was suspended at the time of her death, okay? So when Rachael was killed, several people in her life, including her mother, her ex-fiance, Sheldon, through his lawyer, her friend and aunt, like several people came out and said that Rachael said she was getting death threats and that she was afraid of the police, that she felt like the police were out to get her.
She was afraid of somebody, if you recall, but it was not Sheldon Jeter.
Quote, Ms. DelTondo's family members showed officers at least 2 death threats that Ms. DelTondo received through social media before she was killed. One threat read, "You're not gonna make it 2018, stupid expletive, you're dead." So if you're wondering why Rachael was afraid of the police and felt like someone was out to get her, it's because she was actually an informant. Because when this leaked, an investigation took place. The state police investigated the Aliquippa police. And as part of this state investigation, Rachael was informing the state about what the local police station was doing.
Other suspects include the investigators themselves. Amid reports, DelTondo was set to testify before another grand jury about corruption in the Aliquippa Police Department.
She was cooperating in an ongoing investigation by state police into alleged corruption in the Aliquippa Police Department and that she had received death threats.
She was afraid of the police, deathly afraid of police.
It's hard to imagine that that fear and those death threats had nothing to do with the fact that she was shot, within days of her alleged testimony in front of a grand jury.
Was she killed because she was a cooperating witness when this incident report about her was mysteriously leaked? As a result, state police sanctioned the Aliquippa police, barring them from their databases. And then in March, state police raided the Aliquippa City Hall, seizing computers and hard drives of the mayor and city officials.
Former Beaver County Sheriff George David knows the victim and her family well.
It's definitely an ambush, and like I said, there's a lot of rumors, but a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. They just ought to shut their mouth.
Quote, Lisa DelTondo, that's Rachael's mom, told police that her daughter had been interviewed by Pennsylvania State Police regarding at least one investigation during the 3 months before she died. And she's starting to feel like the Aliquippa police know about it and are out to get her. And then she winds up dead. So back to the whole Watkins family, Lauren Watkins and her father, Sergeant Watkins. Well, the night of the shooting, Sergeant Watkins, remember, Lauren's dad, the same guy that showed up with the steamy car with Sheldon, he shows up to the crime scene and actually gets turned away by other officers because they said he didn't have any reason to be there. They ended up putting Sergeant Watkins on paid administrative leave. Quote, "They're devastated," Chief Couch said of the Watkins family. "He needs to be home with his family, grieving with them and keeping them safe. And at the same time, we're also maintaining case integrity. So later on down the line, no one can say, well, he had access to information and reports or detective conversations or hearsay at the station. It's natural common sense." In the days that followed, there were a series of search warrants executed by police, and most of them were focused on Sheldon Jeter. So they took his phone and a bunch of different belongings, and there's a quote I want to read you about the questions they asked him. It says, investigators interviewed Sheldon Jeter on Monday. He told police he'd seen Miss DelTondo at the Circle K gas station, but surveillance video did not show him at the store, according to the search warrant. The 20-year-old, quote, showed no emotion, end quote, when he was told Miss DelTondo had been killed in her driveway, according to the search warrant. Sheldon Jeter told police he'd been driving around with friends that night and had returned home around 10 p.m. The search warrant says investigators sought weapons and ammunition at Mr. Jeter's home but found none. Mr. Jeter voluntarily gave police khaki pants, a hat, a windbreaker, and shoes he said he was wearing on the night of the homicide. However, surveillance video from a fast food restaurant shows Mr. Jeter was wearing a gray-headed sweatshirt according to a search warrant. Now, although Sheldon denied having anything to do with Rachael's death, he did not deny a romantic relationship. And he also, through his lawyer, said that encounter in 2016 in the steamy car at 2 a.m. was not the first encounter between Rachael and he. Or him. I think it's an he. He said that they were not exclusive. And actually, you know why they were not exclusive? Because Rachael was actually in a, quote, serious relationship with, wait for it, Sheldon's older brother. Not the one that they were having ice cream with. A third. So there's 3 brothers here. There's the oldest, Rashawn, then there's Tyree, and then there's Sheldon. And Rachael seems to have some sort of involvement with all 3. I mean, she had that weird thing, and the thing with Sheldon goes way back, but I'll tell you about it. Then the ice cream, we don't know if that's the first thing between her and the middle brother, but the eldest brother, okay, Rashawn, they were in a serious relationship for months. I think it was like 6 months. According to Sheldon's lawyer, the 3 brothers with Rachael was not an issue. Quote, the brothers never had a problem with each other, Mr. Santacola said. The fact that they were all sleeping with this girl, it might shock the sensibilities of some, but it didn't shock the sensibilities of those involved. I don't know what Rachael was doing with all the brothers. Okay, and I'm not saying brothers, I'm saying like literal brothers. Rashawn was actually out of town when this went down, when Rachael was killed. He gets back to town and police question him, and boy, did he have a story to tell. Rashawn told police he'd overheard Sheldon threaten Rachael during the fall of 2017.
He told police about an altercation from 3 months ago when he and the victim were outside of his home. His younger brother Sheldon showed up and reportedly said, "That expletive told me she was with Amy," and then said to her, "If my brother wasn't here, I'd expletive you up." And Rashawn also told police that he asked his younger brother Sheldon if he was in a relationship with DelTondo. He said that Sheldon said, quote, "Why are you calling me, man? You never call me. You're weird as expletive." And that's when Rashawn says that Sheldon started laughing and then hung up the phone.
And here's where I need to give you some background about Rachael and Sheldon, because it goes all the way back to when Sheldon was just 11 years old, okay? In 2008, before Rachael was working at the cyber school as a teacher, she was a substitute teacher at the Aliquippa Elementary School. At that time, Sheldon was in elementary school. Rachael's mother, Lisa, said she never had him as her own student. That was another lie. He was one of a group of boys there whose teacher used to say, "If you're good today, you can go down the hall to see Miss D after class." Miss D being Rachael DelTondo. They thought she was beautiful because she was. So basically, when Sheldon was 11, another teacher would tell them, because maybe they've had a crush on her or something, that if they were good boys, they could go to Miss D as a treat. It's funny because just imagine if it was a little 11-year-old girl and instead of Miss D, it was Mr. D. Okay. And if the little girl was a good girl, then she would get sent to Mr. D. Because what? Maybe she thought he was handsome. I mean, aren't the adults supposed to teach the kids? They're teachers, right? They're supposed to teach the kids that, even if you have a crush on a teacher, we're not going to encourage that and foster that and reward that. Anyway, so it's giving molestation vibes. According to Sheldon's uncle, He also suspected that there was an older woman grooming Sheldon at the time. He said, Christmas time, 3 years ago, he had a nice expensive watch. And I asked him where he got the watch from. He said, a girl that I'm talking to. Now, I think a lot of people already know this, but giving expensive gifts is classic grooming. So, you know, Rachel's not looking too good right now. So that's the backstory about how far back Rachael and Sheldon go. Less than a month after Rachel's death, a bombshell. The Aliquippa police chief gets surprised at some council meeting. He randomly gets basically put on leave, and he didn't even see it coming.
The next item on the agenda is Mr. Matt Miles.
I'm going to ask that our assistant chief and our officers please come up here. At this time, I'm going to make the motion to put Chief Couch on a paid administrative leave, citing personnel reasons.
I'll second. Okay, roll call vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, a motion been made to put chief on with pay on
Paid administrative leave.
leave.
Chief, if you can please hand over your belongings, and the gentleman will take them out.
Sure, we'll go down.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sign, badge, keys, watch.
Now, what happens next, I don't think you guys are going to be ready for, okay? I told you this was bizarre. So they put a new acting chief. This new acting chief is called Joe Perchiavalli. Joe Perchiavalli was acting chief for all of 2 days because after just 2 days, he got arrested for a felony charge of sending sexually explicit texts to the cell phone of a teenager, okay? And you won't believe who that teenager is, okay? Guess. I'm gonna give you a second guess, okay? If you guessed Lauren Watkins, wow, you're really onto something. I want to work with you because OMG, WTF, Sergeant Watkins' daughter, okay? Let me tell you what happened, okay? So this is a statement from the DA's office. While reviewing instant messengers on the minor's phone, one message included sexually explicit material. The officer on May 10th used his cell phone to send a video of a female urinating while on a swing. The video depicted an unknown white female of an indeterminate age wearing high-heeled boots and a dark-colored sweater or jacket. The female was nude from the waist down and was exhibiting her fully exposed vagina and buttocks. The female was on a park swing and she was urinating while swinging. The 17-year-old girl, Lauren, received the message as part of a group. She did not respond. It was Lauren, her mom, and Sergeant Watkins. And Chief Joe sent this to the family group. Okay? So one person in the group message responded saying, "My daughter is too young to see this." Mr. Perchiavalli responded, "She is 21. Another person in the group said, 17. Mr. Perchiavalli responded, "And it's a girl taking a pee." Then he adds, "like a true Quip hood rat." Quip being short for Aliquippa. Yikes. So then the Chief Joe Perchiavalli, does this video where he explains what happened.
County detectives came in, said they need to talk to me about something important. We went to the interview room and they told me they had an arrest warrant, and I laughed. I said, "Are you playing?" And they said, "No." I was like, no. I sent that to Kenny. It wasn't like a dick pic or nothing. It was a girl on a swing. Well, it wasn't even a girl, it was a woman on a swing. We conversate in group, or I'm talking to Kenny or talking to his wife. So when this meme came in, I sent it to my officers, all my officers. I sent it to Kenny, but not paying attention, I just saw Kenny's name, so I hid it. Unfortunately, the group text message. And that's how that came about. It was an accident. It wasn't nothing malicious. This happened like at the beginning of May. And if it was a big deal, then they would have made a big deal about it to the chief or to the mayor or to somebody. We had many conversations after that. Matter of fact, I think we went out to eat, me and Kenny. It was just a picture of a woman, and I sent it to Kenny. And it was just the accident that it went to the group message. I do think it's retaliation. Somebody's trying to ruin me, trying to ruin my name. And there was many threats made against me that'll come out in a later date.
He says that this is revenge, that the Aliquippa police did this to him because they found out that he was also a snitch in the investigation, the same one that Rachel was an informant in. Remember how the state was investigating Aliquippa? Well, he was one of the Aliquippa police officers that was cooperating and informing the state police. And he says when the other cops found out that he was snitching, they found this about him and they used it against him. Even his lawyer came out and said that Lauren was also, coerced.
Lauren, who they believe is the victim in this case, will testify that she was threatened, that if she did not cooperate, that they were going to arrest her father. Clearly, there's some motivation behind this other than seeking justice. I think once we have the hearing, it's going to be quite clear that this is politically motivated. I think it's going to be evident that there were some investigations going on with the Aliquippa Police Department that underlie the reason why these charges have been filed.
The whole thing is so messed up with this informant thing because the DA seemed to be involved and then totally switched up. He was reporting to the DA, and then he said randomly in 2016 he sent a message to the DA just like he had many times before, and the DA was like, "I'm sorry, who is this?" As if he didn't even know who he was. And according to Joe, after that, everything changed, and he felt like the DA stopped wanting to be part of this investigation, actually wanted to now protect Aliquippa Police Department from the investigation, and that's why everything switched around and changed, according to Joe. Joe also says that the people who he was complaining about were friends with the DA. It's a small town. They're all friends. So he feels like it was like the buddy system kind of thing, or what do they call it? Good old boys club or whatever. So at this point, okay, it's been a month or two since Rachel was shot and killed, and everybody is looking at the police department like they're a joke, between the corruption investigation and then this chief gets taken out and then the next chief gets arrested, and it's this whole mess and investigations and everything. The confidence in the police was at an all-time low. So there's a third police chief, the third police chief in 3 days, okay? And this third police chief, he removes the Aliquippa police from the case, from Rachel's case, and he's like, this should have been done a long time ago. We just shouldn't be on this case. But who does he give it to? The DA's office. Okay, the same DA's office that Joe is complaining about is in cahoots with the Aliquippa PD. Rumors started swirling. Everyone was talking could it have been a cop? So it's important to note here when we talk about Aliquippa police and corruption, there was this major incident that happened in that town that sparked all of this distrust. It was actually a police officer that told people before he was shot 2 times in the back of the head, he said, if something happens to me, the police did it. And then something happened to him and people said the police did it. But then there was this crazy thing that happened where they got a mentally disabled person to confess and snitch and implicate other people. And the guy who was implicated maintained his innocence until this day. He's been sentenced to like 20, 40 years, still maintains his innocence. And a lot of people believe that this was a total cover-up, and that the cops did it. It says here regarding that case, the jury never heard that the officer named, that's the one that got shot, told his family Aliquippa police should be investigated in the event of his death. And the judge ruled that that information was not admissible. It says the controversial verdict did nothing to dispel rumors that police were involved in Officer Name's killing. According to the third police chief that was put in, he knew this officer, and even he says that like people in the police department kind of don't know what really happened. And he said, quote, people still say that stuff, but I don't know. He paused for a long moment. That was definitely a bad time. But there was a third suspect that people were talking about, and that was Rachel's ex-fiance, Frank.
Frank Catropa says he had nothing to do with the murder of his former fiancée.
DelTondo was engaged to local businessman Frank Catropa, and in February 2017, she and her mother were interviewed by Marty Griffin for a story about a dispute over her custom wedding dress.
We wanted to be very, very clear publicly that Frank Catropa has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with what happened.
That's quite some time, and you just hope to see that they at least get justice.
Frank, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you have anything to do with the death of Rachael DelTondo?
Absolutely not.
Rachel's parents were actually suspecting Frank, and they told police that Frank and his associates had at times followed her around after their breakup. Actually, Frank was one of the first people police questioned right after her murder. So when police questioned Frank, he said, I have an alibi. It was Mother's Day. I was at my mom's house, and then I went with my girlfriend to her mom's house, and then from there I went back to my apartment with my girlfriend, where we remained at my apartment for the rest of the night. So police went to get his key fob for the apartment to check the records, and they couldn't verify that. It says here, quote, police could not find surveillance cameras that would have captured Mr. Catropa's arrival at his apartment, but did pull information from his key fob. That data did not show any logins to his apartment or the apartment building on the day of the homicide, according to the search warrant.
I just found this, and it's a picture of Frank less than 2 months after Rachel's murder, wearing a t-shirt that says fake alibi, and he's with his new girlfriend, and the caption, she posted it, the caption says fake alibi. There's even a whole article about it that says lawyer in DelTondo murder calls fake alibi t-shirt surprising. So I don't know, I thought that was worth mentioning. Weird.
So I think I need to tell you what happened between Frank and Rachel, because it involves Sheldon. Frank found out about Rachel and what Rachel was doing. Let's go back to 2016 when Rachel was found in that steamy car with Sheldon. It was February 2016. It was Super Bowl weekend. And actually, she had gotten into a fight with Frank. Why? Because he was at the game, the Super Bowl, with his friends, and there were girls there. And she was upset about that. She was pissed. So they got into a fight about it, and then she ends up with Sheldon in that lot at 2 a.m. The incident happens, and she confides in her best friend, Jen, about the fact that she was found by police with Sheldon. According to Frank, it was after this trip to the Super Bowl, when he came back, he said that that's when Rachel was acting paranoid and saying the police were after her. Quote, she would never really give names, but she would always just, lump in the police department. Fast forward from February to December 2016, Frank is throwing his annual birthday party. He does it big every year. And it's at this party that Jen confronts Rachel. I just said, Rachel, I said, I just feel like something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but you're doing something that's just not good. And I'm worried about you. And she got very angry at me. And she was just like, nothing's wrong with me. We both stood up and we were in each other's, faces at that point, and she just kind of, swung at me. The interviewer says, she swung at you? Jen says, yeah, she had hit me in the face. And Frank comes in and is like, what's going on? And that's when Jen tells him about Sheldon. Quote, I just broke down in tears and I said, please ask her what she was doing in the car with some kid at night. And I told him. Rachel ends up convincing Frank that Jen is lying, she's jealous, whatever, they're lying, they're starting rumors, and Frank believes Rachel, and actually they stopped talking, like as a couple, they stopped talking to Jen and her husband for like a year. But this thing was gnawing and nagging at Frank. There was always something in the back of his mind like, is it true? Like, did Rachel do something with some kid in a car? Like, whoa. So finally, his curiosity gets the best of him and he just goes to the police station. And who does he ask but Joe Perchiavalli? Remember him?
It wasn't like a dick pic or nothing.
Quote, he told me she was trying to get back with him and he just wanted to know if it was true because he don't want to look stupid. I told the chief I didn't feel comfortable giving it to him, and the chief told me give it to him. He's like, why not? It's Frankie. Him and Chief Couch was good friends, I guess. Remember when I told you the police report was written a year later when they said someone asked for it? Well, that someone was Frank. And as he's reading the police report, he realizes that Rachel has lied about some things. First, she told him it happened at 11 p.m. The police report said it was 2 a.m. Then she told him it was at the Circle K, but the police report said it was in an abandoned lot. So it was way more private and isolated than what she told him. Then there were the details that she left out, such as that the seat was fully reclined, that he was in, such as that the windows were steamed up. These are two details that kind of paint a different picture than the picture that Rachel was painting. And so Frankie was, as you would imagine, pissed, betrayed. He felt like she lied to him. According to Joe Perchiavalli, he said that Frank, after reading it, was basically crying. He said, quote, he was upset when he was about to leave. His eyes were watery. Now, Frank was able to take the report with him, not just the report, but documents that were in there, such as social security numbers, driver's license, like private information. The same exact information that was leaked. So remember when there was a leak that I told you about that resulted in Rachel's suspension? Well, yeah, everyone thinks that Frank, her ex-fiance, is the one who leaked it after he got it from Joe. Frank denies this, but it's like, who else could have done it? And so that's why everyone thinks that he leaked the documents to destroy and get back at Rachel for what she did. That's also why people think that he could have killed her too. So when this report was leaked and Rachel got suspended, she did not take it well at all. She actually ended up in a psych ward. According to her parents, she didn't eat or sleep for days, and they ended up putting her in a psych ward for 3 days. And then when she came out, she was very isolated and paranoid, and her mom decided that it's time to get back at Frank. Rachel's mom ends up calling the local newspaper and basically telling them, I have a story for you about corruption in the Aliquippa Police Department. And she even talked about Frank Katropa, the ex-fiance, and his links with corruption with the police department, with his business and all kind of stuff like that. She basically says, my daughter will be an informant for you. The owner of that newspaper said that Rachel did speak to him and tell him about corruption. She also said she was getting death threats because she was an informant for an investigation by the state police. So the owner of this newspaper said, quote, yeah, Rachel was reluctant at first. She started getting death threats. She feared for her life. Rachel described a city that was rotten to its core. So now it's been a year since Rachel was shot and killed, and there are no arrests. And 48 Hours decides to do an episode on Rachel's case. And what happened hours after that episode aired would shock the entire community of Aliquippa.
There's a male lying on the ground, unresponsive with his eyes open. Said she touched his knee and he didn't move. A female yelling and a blue pickup truck fled the scene.
Another twist in the Rachael DelTondo homicide investigation. An alleged overdose on an Aliquippa street corner.
And that medics revived Sheldon Jeter Jr. with Narcan at 4 o'clock Sunday morning. The chief said Jeter got up, walked away, and yelled obscenities at first responders. Officers received a 911 call about an unconscious man found lying on the side of the road after reportedly being, quote, thrown from a vehicle. Just 6 hours before this incident, CBS aired that 48 Hours investigation exploring Jeter as a potential person of interest. Jeter's attorney, Michael Santacola, he tells KDKA his client has no recollection of any alleged overdose. Jeter was out at a bar with friends that night. It was those friends who say he hopped in an unknown vehicle. Santacola said Jeter went to Sewickley Hospital for a drug test and it came back clean.
Isn't it odd? Just a few hours after this episode airs, Sheldon is like unconscious with his eyes open, not responding in the middle of a road somewhere. Isn't that weird? That's really weird. And I feel like there's several ways you could interpret that, but a lot of people saw it as a sign of guilt. Like, what you freaked out, you went and were you trying to end it? Then, almost a year to the day after Sheldon was found unconscious, he is arrested for murder of his really good friend who was almost like his brother, who was raised by his family, who he lived with.
Developing tonight, a man found dead in the middle of the road in Aliquippa, and the man behind bars is one of two people questioned in the murder of Rachael DelTondo.
A former Aliquippa football star is sitting behind bars here tonight.
State police say they have an abundance of evidence.
And the details are eerily similar to the details in Rachel's case. First, the victims both had ice cream before they were shot. Second, they were both shot in front of their homes where they lived. Third, they were both shot multiple times in the chest. In this case, there was a lot of damning evidence against Sheldon. Physical evidence. They found same shell casings and fragments of the same bullets in his home as they found in the victim. They also found the gunshot residue in Sheldon's car. And there was also surveillance footage that contradicted what Sheldon said. And it was making everyone look at the Rachel situation very differently. Now, Sheldon was the prime suspect in the Rachel case as well. So Sheldon has a trial.
This afternoon, they convicted Sheldon Jeter Jr. for first-degree murder.
Then there was some weird drama that was going on with one of the jurors.
Somebody from the town noticed that this one particular juror lived next door to the DelTondo family. She was the next door neighbor to the DelTondos and didn't reveal that somebody close to her was a victim of a crime. The juror was talking with outside individuals during the time of the trial, and we have very reliable information on that. As shocking as that sounds, that seems to be what's happened.
Sheldon's defense lawyer brings this up, but the judge dismisses it as hearsay, and the judge sentences Sheldon to life without parole. Quote, "When the guilty verdict was read, there were gasps and cries of 'oh my God' from the gallery. Jeter, clad in a purple button-up shirt and a blue medical mask, hung his head while the jurors confirmed that they agreed with the verdict." The latest update in Rachel's case, quote, 48 Hours has learned that a secret Pennsylvania statewide grand jury has heard evidence in Rachael DelTondo's murder. And the DA said, "We're pleased with the quality of the evidence that we have and will make an announcement when we believe we can win a case to the criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt." So those are the facts. Now let's discuss the theories. Let's begin with the Sheldon theory, and that one is pretty popular, as you can imagine. And if you think about it, I mean, you think means, motive, opportunity. The means is a bit difficult because it's like, well, did he have a gun at that time? We don't know. However, later on, he did have access to a gun. So Is it hard to believe that he was able to get it and then dispose of it and nobody found it? The police weren't able to find it the next morning. It's possible. And then if you look at motive, I think that's the strongest one, because let's call a spade, okay? He was sexually abused by Rachel. Sheldon was sexually abused by Rachel.
Allegedly, my conspiracy allegedly. Don't sue me, allegedly.
If everything that was said is true, then that's what that is. Whether he's a boy or not, whether he had a crush on her or not. He was 11 years old when we don't know what started, but he was being groomed. We know, with that expensive watch and whatever. And then there was that incident, and then she gets with his brother. Then the night of the shooting, she's with his other brother. Maybe not Tyree. Look, I'm getting them confused. Maybe Sheldon is jealous and possessive over her because he's mind fucked, right? I mean, even when you are being abused, you may identify and crave the attention of and seek the approval and whatever of your abuser. That's why they groom you. It's very twisted. Now, Rachel's mom, she says that the night of the shooting, she knew it was Sheldon. She also talked about an incident where Sheldon was drunk and came to their house and was banging on all their windows. And she says he was obsessed with her and jealous, and that when she got with his older brother, that was it. And that night when he found out that his brother was out of town and now she was with the other brother, as he was texting and asking, where y'all at? Maybe he was lying in wait at the DelTondo's home. That's why he sent that message being like, Hank's closed. Like, it's 10:30, the ice cream shop is closed. Where are you? I could see him just sitting there waiting, like, where is she? And then when Lauren pulls up, and if we are assuming that Sheldon is lying in wait, he would have seen his brother Tyree in that car with Rachel and Lauren. And they all stopped answering him when he asked who was there, where are we going, so he feels left out. He even said, I got left, huh? So he's probably feeling like, I'm getting left out, I'm being treated like shit, and they're all ignoring and avoiding Sheldon. They drop Rachel off, and then they both leave. Now he's there alone with Rachel. He could have walked up to her and confronted her, and maybe she got upset, which could have explained the angry face that was stuck on her face that her mother talked about. Then he shoots her multiple times, ran away, maybe on foot. It's a small town, small neighborhood. Maybe he could run home. That would have been means, motive, and opportunity. Although it looks really bad for Sheldon, there's still people who believe someone else could have done it and that they're actually framing Sheldon. And who could that be? Well, the police, of course. So let's talk about the police theory. First, you have the fact that Rachel herself told multiple people that she was afraid of the police and that she felt like they were out to get her and that she was getting death threats. Could those death threats have been Sheldon? Could have been. Nobody knows who came from. Could it have been some police officer that was upset? Someone who felt like he was going to go down because she was snitching and wanted to end it? Some people think that's possible. Do you believe someone in the police department had means? Well, of course, a police officer would have means to kill someone, right? If they had a gun and whatnot. Motive. Maybe they felt like they had to shut her up or else everything was at stake for them. Opportunity. Maybe. If they were stalking her, that would have been the perfect opportunity. So you've got that as well. Remember Officer Perchiavalli, the dick pic officer? Remember him?
Do you think that anyone in the police department was involved in any way in Rachel's death?
You just never know.
Then a lot of people talk about Sergeant Watkins, how he was at the scene that day, but then they turned him away and they're like, well, why was he at the scene? How did he know to get there? Did he know because of Lauren, or was he there? Was he lying in wait? But there is no evidence that Sergeant Watkins did anything. Nobody said that he's done it. This is a conspiracy theory. Don't sue me. Allegedly. Lastly, we have the ex-fiance theory, which is the Frank theory, right? Frank, did he do it? I mean, people say, listen, this is a guy who found this information, leaked it, he emailed it to a bunch of people, the media, the mayor, her friends, her employer, family. I mean, he did something that a lot of people say was calculated and vindictive, which is what this type of murder looks like. You know what? Maybe he wasn't over it. Maybe he was really pissed and he decided, I'm going to kill her. And he did. According to the DA's office, they found, quote, an ironclad alibi. Surveillance footage showing Frank 25 miles away as the shots rang out. So if there's video footage of him and he's nowhere near the area, then you could say he didn't do it. And that brings me to the final theory, which is like a hitman. Could some of these people have hired someone to do this? They're saying maybe Frank hired a hitman. I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys think about this and who do you think is responsible? What do you think about this case? It's pretty insane. If you ask me what I think, I think Sheldon did it. When I was beginning the case and I saw the text exchange, I felt like he may have done it, especially when she was with his brother and the whole history that they had. But then when he was found unconscious and then a year after that, he's murdered someone else and the ice cream and the same, that's very similar. That's when I was like, okay, I think he did it. Now, whether he is 100% to blame, I mean, you shouldn't kill anyone if you're not in immediate danger. But at the same time, you know, it's like, I don't like molesters. And I don't care what gender they are or any of that shit. I really don't like, I hate them. I hate molesters and I have no sympathy for them. So if the situation was reversed and it was an 11-year-old girl and later on and all these incidents that happened and she just turned up and shot a male teacher, I don't think anybody would have given a shit. I would have been like, they would have probably been like, he had it coming. Oh well. I'm not saying he should have done it and I'm not saying it was the right thing to do, but I think that it's pretty complicated and what happened to him was pretty messed up and it's just very messed up. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where you kind of see it from different angles and you just, do two wrongs make a right? I don't know. What a case, huh? Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.